Hello, hello. I wasn't as quick with these summaries of the Waterloo Region District School Board as I would have liked to be. This one in particular was from April 24th. There was a lot going on. Wait, nope, scratch that. It was the week before. The 17th? 19th. They had it on Wednesday. So let's get started on it. I kind of want to show you all how to access this if you're not yet familiar with it. If you wanted to access, if you ever wanted to access the board meetings, you can do so by going to WRDSB.ca. This is the homepage here. And so if you go to trustees, you've got all of your trustees listed here. And then you go to the meetings and it'll bring you down. So so if you go to April, for instance, this is when our meetings happened. We've got the 19th, the 24th, you've got the agendas here, and then you've got the live stream. So this is how you find out when the meetings are. You can attend live. You just find out where the meeting is being held, and it's always at the Waterloo Region District School Board in Kitchener. And here's the agenda right here. So this is the one that we are going to be discussing April 19th. Particularly, this little clip is going to be about the French immersion. We had 2 speakers on the French immersion program. Some of you may have received the French immersion changes. Let me pull that up. Some of you may have received a notice if your child is in French immersion. I'm not sure if all parents would have received it, or if you're in core French. I don't know if you would have or not, but I do remember getting this. And it's interesting because I'm going to check my biases here and my ignorance, because honestly, when I received this, I was kind of happy. I didn't like how my boys were doing math in French. I found, because they're doing apparently testing in English, which I have to find out more about that because I just recently found that out. But anyway, my kids are still rather young. But I wasn't liking that they're doing math, particularly was one of the ones that I was really happy to see moved to English. And from speaking to different parents, it was another thing that we kind of like, yes, thank goodness they're going to be learning. And I'm going to be honest, I looked at the list of what was going to be taught in French, and my mind went to, it's not as important as, I guess I would say, that they're not getting... they're not learning it in English, which, I mean, now that I've seen the delegations, I'm really glad that I did. It's a whole new perspective of things. And, I think it was Michael, was it? Oh, Richard. Richard spoke about, well, you know what? Here, how about I put those on and then you take a listen to the delegations and then you can have your own thoughts on that. But I'm just going to share my experience in terms of, when I received this, my mind went to, well, clearly these changes have been made. Again, I was happy to see math moved. And then my mind went to, obviously, these changes have been made due to feedback from staff, maybe feedback from kids, from parents, saying that the current French immersion program isn't really working all that well for our students. And surely it came from that. Like, it came from that it's better than before. And I think that we all kind of think that. And it's interesting because those of you who know me and the work I've been doing within the school board, or to shed light on the school board, I guess I should say, I probably should have known better, or would have been more skeptical, or probably would have given a less than generous assumption on the consultation that was given in here. Now, I say that, and I'm going to check myself again, because as I was looking for this exact summary or chart, I was searching the Waterloo Region District School Board site, and I came across this, and it was the French program review. So it gives you some background information. It gives you some reports here. One of these that I opens up to this package here. And I found here a French Immersion Review Committee. So it's not that there wasn't consultation, which, I mean, I don't know why things like this aren't mentioned when we had, again, you're going to see the delegations, but why not have the delegations and say, well, there was a review process. And surely, there were how many people here? 33. And then it shows you who attended all of the meetings. So these were the amount of meetings they had. From September to June. And then, who attended. It looks like majority probably attended most meetings. But regardless, then you got to critically think about this. It's easy to say, and we'll hear this, oh, there was consultation. And Trustee Cindy Watson is really good with this, pointing out there wasn't consultation. And I think the definition of that needs to be understood as well, because, you can say there was consultation for this. And I look at this report, and it's not like there wasn't thought that went into this. If you go into all of the, elementary French as a second language program review, this was highlighted on June 17th of 2022. There's extensive work that went into this. I'm not going to deny that. The problem is, and I'll let you go through that yourself. You can find that at this website here. But I think, the fact that I received this, and my thought was that clearly all the teachers are on board. Clearly, or at least the majority of the voice. And when I say majority of the voice, I mean everyone was taken into account, and then they've gathered that information. I also, I check myself there, and I know that you can't speak to everyone, but I would imagine that this proposal could go forward. Before going forward, it would go to the teachers, the educators specifically, so that they could provide some feedback. But that's, as we'll see, the teachers found out basically when the parents did about this list. Now, perhaps not these people on this committee, this French Immersion Review Committee. Perhaps these people knew. I don't know. I don't know if they kind of found out what the results were afterwards. The fact of the matter is when you look at this list, there might be, there's a few trustees that were on there. There were a few students, there were a few parents. There are a few people from all these different areas, which is really important. The thing is let's say, a parent, if we had 5 parents, 6 parents, I don't know, I didn't count. But let's say, do those 5 parents or 6 parents, do they know what the majority or what the community of parents in French immersion are saying? Did they collect that information before coming to the committee and saying, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I've gathered? Or is it just 5 people stating their opinion? And is this more of a group think tank, if you will, once, something's presented and problems are presented and potential solutions are provided? Who knows? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I never heard of this. That's the other thing, is like, who gets selected? Is it random? I don't know. I don't know any of those answers. So maybe those are things we can pose to the board and not have answered. But anyway, let's go through this. I'll show you the delegations.
Truth is, I don't know, truthfully, if this is going to make a large difference after the decisions that have already been made and announced for the French immersion curriculum coming up. Is going to make any difference at all if I'm speaking to this tonight. However, I would like to speak on it, the implications of it and the changes, not only to the curriculum, but also the impact of what I can see as a very ill-advised decision that has been made and just released by the board. The overall answer is that this week alone, I witnessed, just going to pick up my sons from school, kids sitting on the elementary school playground during physical education classes. My sons told me that there is no longer a soccer team, no football team, no teams during lunch or after school, no clubs, nothing that I myself experienced or that anyone else has experienced pre the COVID pandemic. Yet at a RAPSI meeting today, or sorry, earlier this month actually, I listened to a representative of the teachers union talk about the return of students coming back from classes after the pandemic. They spoke of disciplinary issues, social anxiety, lack of critical thinking, emotional acceptance, lack of empathy, lack of inclusion, etc. And I couldn't help but, in this time relating to the pandemic and everything else, speaking to the changes in the French immersion curriculum, where the math and sciences will be pulled out of French, and instead the subjects of music and physical education, etc., will be put into the French immersion stop. This is a common factor that I challenge you on, because the arts itself is a cornerstone of not only good habits, releasing disciplinary issues, social anxiety, It helps in critical thinking. Studies have proven that it helps emotional acceptance, emotional intelligence. Lack of empathy is turned around. It promotes and holds developmental spatial awareness, critical thinking, problem solving, reinforces language skills, etc. The overall options, including improving mood and improving coordination, enhancing auditory skills, and more, are going to be suffering when you are not allowed to teach that in a language that is then understood and communicated. That is ignoring the fact that in many schools, music teachers are actually music trained teachers. And luckily enough, in my son's elementary school, the music educator there is the trained music teacher. Studies have shown that, studies across Europe and the US as well, have shown that over 45% of music teachers do not want teachers that are not specialized teaching education in music. That over 72% of teachers that are not specialized in music are not comfortable teaching the music or other arts. And over 80% of them have an issues teaching it when it becomes specialized to instrumental study, etc. The issue I'm having here is that we're dealing with a pandemic return where all these issues are known, and we take away the few courses that bring together these kids through band, through other things, through music videos, and all other options. In a presentation to RAPSI in February, a Waterloo Record reporter talked about the French immersion course on the whole and said that the French immersion issue in his mind sits in the core that people are signing up thinking it makes them bilingual, or it's where the smart kids go. My question for the trustees today is, why are instructions on courses taught in other languages not sent to parents in both languages? Why are they not using online options to send the instructions for homework for their kids in math or science to the parents? Why just teach math in English? The answer, I know already, is the grades went down. So what you're saying is that you can afford for the grades in the arts to go down as long as the arts program isn't as important as balancing a checkbook. Why is balancing a checkbook more important than developing a well-rounded and intellectual growth of all students? Studies have proven that over 60% of doctors graduating in 2019, 2020 out of med schools in Canada studied music from a young age. So what we've proven now is that we're going to have math in English and science in English. They're going to know everything about it, but they're going to have absolutely no sense of culture because of the lack of quality of education going on in these schools. I'm challenging as to why the WRDSB in their own reports say that they want equity, inclusion, enhancements, and all other options to be included in school culture, and why they push it so importantly, but then they remove the one kind of course that bring English language speaking and the French immersion curriculums together.
So that was Richard who spoke there. And I mean, he brought up some good points there. For those of you who don't know what RAPSI is, it's basically if anyone's part of their school councils for their own kids' schools, they have a rep, like a representative that would go to this assembly of all of the councils of all of the region, and then what happens is there's presentations there, information is given to these representatives, and then those reps can go back to their student or school councils in order to provide that information to them. So, I mean, the one that he was referring to specifically was Jeff Orrit. He's a journalist from the Waterloo Region Record, and I particularly found that very interesting as well. So Jeff went on about some stats of outcomes for French immersion and overall just outcomes in learning in our school board in general. Something that he specifically said that stands out for me, which isn't a surprise for a lot of you probably, is that it says trust the data more than the school board is advertising, which I think is quite telling. He did go through quite a bit, and let me know if you want to know some more about that. But anyway, specifically when he was discussing the French immersion program, he mentioned that nowadays, which I think most of us who have our kids in French immersion can say, that it's, well, firstly, he was saying that, parents are under the impression that if they go into French immersion, that it will make them bilingual, which isn't what the French immersion is really meant for, I guess. And now I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's something he was saying, and maybe I misinterpreted what the message he was saying, but I think Richard got the same message, that that's how it's almost perceived by the community that puts their kids into French immersion. But what ends up happening, another thing that Jeff mentioned, and this is what I'm going to say I think is quite accurate, is that people who don't go, some of the kids that don't go into French immersion, now there's behavioral issues, or it's perceived to be more of the intellectual kids would be put into French immersion program, and those that are not so intellectual would go into the core French. And that's not what it should be. But I think that maybe we could do a better job as a school board to educate the parents on what French immersion really is and what it's meant to do, and what it's not meant to do. And maybe, core French is where more students should be. I have no idea, but I would really like to know more about that. So the next delegation was incredibly informative. We have Susan Morley, and she's an educator, she's a music teacher. So it was very helpful to have her come in and state her perspective as a music teacher, and also speaking for visual arts and drama and dance as well, and how this impacts that. So I will put Susan's on.
Ready to speak with you tonight. My name is Susan Morley. I have been employed as a teacher by the WRDSB since 1993. I am deeply passionate about my most recent assignment, teaching music and the performing arts at Westville Public School. Next slide. I assumed my current position in 2015 with the sole purpose of building a performing arts program, and I am pleased to say that music and the performing arts are alive and well, not only at Westville, but also in many schools across the region, thanks to our dedicated and qualified music educators. Next slide. I am here tonight to represent the voices of many of my colleagues, being music teachers, as well as core French and French immersion teachers alike. In these last 30 years, I have witnessed more changes in the education system than I can possibly count. I have also witnessed extensive changes in our student populations. We are more diverse than ever, with multiple ethnicities, cultures, and languages being represented in a single class. In addition, I have seen an increase in learning needs with students who demonstrate various learning disabilities. Teachers are faced with ever-changing working conditions, expectations, and demands. They have to be flexible and willing to change in order to adapt to the ever-changing world in which we live. Next slide. Now educators are facing another change, one that we are struggling to reconcile. Many educators throughout the region were shocked and saddened by the decision the board has made in regards to French instruction for the coming school year. We struggle to understand the changes to our roles as educators, and we are concerned for the impact this may have on our students. We also struggle with the timing of these changes. The board's decision was made in June of 2022, yet teachers were not informed of the specific changes and how they would drastically alter our teaching assignments until January 27th of this year. Parents and caregivers learned about the plans through school day on March 21st. Considering the scope of the changes, teachers are concerned that they may not have the time or resources to adequately prepare. Next slide. One of the most significant impacts of the new French immersion delivery model is the change in the language of instruction from English to French in music and the performing arts. In addition, French immersion will begin in grade 2. All grade 1 students will see an increase in French from 5 periods to 8 periods per cycle, leaving grade 1 teachers with French as their only option for planning time coverage. The results of these changes displaces many music educators who will be reassigned to teach subjects they haven't taught in years or perhaps decades. The purpose of my delegation is to advocate for the best possible education for students, which I believe includes a solid grounding in the performing arts, and even more specifically music. Of all the subjects students will study in their lifetime, including math, music is the only one that actively engages all the parts of the brain and improves learning in the other core subject areas. It is also a subject in which most students achieve high rates of success. It is rare to see a student who needs an IEP in music. Good music instruction delivered by a knowledgeable music educator can enhance a child's learning in school in ways that are immeasurable. Next slide. This is what we know about music. Number one, it is a language which requires informed teaching practices as well as a particular skill set. Number two, it is integral in social emotional learning and in rebuilding from traumatic events such as a pandemic. And number three, it is a vital part of school spirit, culture, and community. Core classroom teachers, both English and French immersion, work tirelessly to master multiple subjects with steadily changing curriculums and pedagogical strategies. They manage the constant pressure to meet provincial standards and standardized testing in math and language, and they devote their time and energy to excel in the teaching of these subjects. In the fall, many of these teachers will now need to teach music and the performing arts in French. Additional time and funding will be needed to develop appropriate resources in French for these subjects. Meanwhile, those of us who have specialized in the arts will be assigned to teach other subjects. Next slide. We know that the ministry does not recognize primary and junior music to be a specialized subject. Grade 1 to 6 teachers are certified to teach all subjects. Therefore, teachers who are passionate and experienced in the arts are not considered specialists. Please consider that music is a specialized language that often requires years of study and practice to understand and to master, let alone to teach. Those of you who learned how to play an instrument, to sing, or to sing in a choir most likely did so under the careful guidance of a qualified music teacher. Placing music instruction in the hands of someone with no musical background, training, or passion is beneficial to no one. On the other hand, it increases the stress and workload of core classroom teachers and robs students of the specialized instruction they deserve. Many students in our region learn music at school and only at school, as many families cannot afford private music lessons. The students in our board who are fortunate enough to have music lessons outside of school greatly benefit when there is consistency between the language they are learning in school and the language they are learning in their private lessons. Those connections, which enhance a child's overall learning and experience, will be lost when we add the barrier of another language. Music is a language of notation and terminology, which is in Italian, requiring specialized training in order to read and understand. One look at our music curriculum document, one will quickly see that music is indeed a specialized language. Next slide. Rhythm, for example, is only one of the 6 elements of music in the curriculum. Fundamental concepts for the element of rhythm in grade 3 are 16ths and dotted half notes. In grade 4, syncopated rhythms. In grade 5, dotted quarters followed by 8ths, dotted 8ths followed by 16ths. Various combinations of 8ths and 16ths. In grade 6, compound meters, pick up notes, triplets. Those of you who with limited background or training in music might not have understood anything I just said. Rather, you might have thought you were sitting in math class, taking a lesson on fractions. You cannot ignore the obvious connections between music and math. Now that math has been moved to English for our French immersion students, does it not make sense to keep music in English where the learning in these subjects clearly complement each other? We have the resources available with highly qualified music teachers. Why not use them to their fullest capacity and offer our students the best music education and experience possible? Next slide. Our current high school music programs depend on adequate enrollments in order to survive. Our region is blessed with amazing high school music programs that are thriving because of the strength of our elementary music programs. These high school programs are built on the foundation that is laid in the early years, a foundation that consists of the love of music, an understanding of basic music skills and concepts, and confidence. Next slide. In addition, music can change the course of a child's day and even his or her life. Our kids have survived the pandemic, or have they? Next slide. Mental health issues are rising. We see debilitating anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and suicidal ideation. Lethargy, apathy, anger, and aggression are now common. We are helping kids get through this, and we are giving them the tools they need in order to not only survive, but to thrive. For many kids, music class is their escape, their happy place, their safe place. They are relearning how to take risks and grow. Through music, they are processing their feelings and they are expressing themselves. Music finds its way into the hearts and minds of children. It is vital to kids' mental health, and knowing how to use it well is crucial if we are going to see kids come out on the other side. Requiring students to now do the subject creatively and wholeheartedly in a second or third language seems unfair to them. Next slide. Lastly, music is the tie that binds a school together. Music educators seize moments to bring unity and to infuse spirit into an entire school community, boosting its morale. Learning songs in common and singing them together in an assembly, for example, is equity in action, as it unites the community and builds relationships. When all students can come together and sing the same songs, the sense of belonging and unity that it creates is unparalleled. These unifying experiences are the ones kids remember and take with them when school is long behind them. The togetherness, the music, the songs, the things that make them laugh or put a smile on their faces are the memories that last. Under the new French immersion delivery model, this sense of community and unity will be lost in our French immersion schools. These schools are already divided by classes, the French and the English. Music has been the one thing all classes have had in common, and it has been a powerful connecting tool. Moving the performing arts, and especially music, into French even further divides these two streams. As a school board that promotes equity and inclusion, why wouldn't we consider keeping music in English where all students can unite and feel part of the same community? We understand that French immersion programming needs to change. I wonder how these changes serve our students. Could we consider another way to implement changes that could better serve the needs of our students and be less disruptive to the performing arts instruction, especially music? Can we revisit subject allocations in French immersion so that music could once again be taught in English? In the light of the points mentioned, would you be willing to reconsider and review the board's decision to change the current delivery model of French immersion and to consider other options? Next slide. In closing, I would like to leave you with a quote from one of 20th century's most passionate advocates for music education and accessibility, the great composer and conductor, Leonard Bernstein. I propose that the reading and understanding of music be taught to our children from the very beginning of their school life. Children must receive musical instruction as naturally as food and with as much pleasure as they derive from a baseball game. And this must happen from the beginning of their school lives. Thank you for taking the time to consider my concerns and thoughts. I ultimately want to see the best possible outcome for our kids.
So I found that to be incredibly powerful and just so eye-opening. I'm going to speak again from experience, my own. I grew up in the Catholic board, and so we didn't have middle school. And I can parallel it because my husband did go in. He was brought up in the public school, and he had elementary, middle school, and high school. And he learned music, and again, he was part of this public school, the Waterloo Region District School Board, and he learned it very well. And so then when we were in high school, we went to high school together. I went to a public school for high school, and you could see how well he did. And I see it now with my kids because they're in piano. We are blessed enough to put them in piano class. And I wonder, Susan brought up some really tremendous points. And a lot of hypocrisy that I see when I see things like this. Those of us who can afford, who are putting money aside in order for our kids to do piano or other music, other tutoring, anything outside of the school board, but that students are getting or should be getting within the school board, and they're just getting more of it outside of it. The equity piece is just tremendous to me. To have these kids not be able to do expressive, arts, whether it be music or dance or drama or visual arts, for them not to be able to do that expressively. And you can't fully express yourself if you don't know the language that you're speaking, and you don't know how to speak it well, and you don't know the exact words to be able to communicate exactly what you want to communicate in the manner in which you want to communicate it, then you're not going to be able to do that. And I do believe that culture and that creativity will be lost. So I am really grateful for that eye-opening presentation. Susan Morley, I don't know if you'll ever see this, but I had the pleasure of speaking to Susan afterwards and thanking her. I'm really grateful for that, and it's making me consider whether or not French immersion is something I even want my kids in anymore, to be quite honest. But yeah, so take a look at that. I think another thing to really keep in mind about what happened at the April 19th board meeting is, again, absolute decisions that are made sometimes. So this has been made clearly, as you saw. Parents, teachers alike had no idea. I'm speaking to some of the teachers that reach out to me. There are a lot of unhappy teachers. There are some really great questions, actually, and I wonder maybe I will put those on, and then you can take a listen to those as well.
Great. Yes. So you had a picture up there of through you to delegate. So of ukulele, and so it was quite colorful. But would it be safe to assume that the equipment that the music program has purchased, will the teacher who's teaching French be able to guide students and teach them in French using all of that equipment? I mean, it just seems like a daunting task if you're not trained musically.
Ms. Morley, in your opinion?
I cannot speak for my colleagues, but
Thank you.
from listening to my colleagues, there is a great sense of tremendous overload, that this is just too much. Because the majority of the people that I work with do not have musical training, let alone even music backgrounds. One colleague in particular comes from France, and she is a brilliant French immersion teacher, and she that is her passion. And now she's looking at in France, there was no music education in her background. So there's a lot of people who are feeling quite overwhelmed.
Thank you. You have a follow-up, Trustee Watson?
And thank you for your question.
I'm just going to pause it there. For those of you who play music, those of you who know how to play some sort of instrument, I'm not speaking to any of you, because you probably take it for granted, especially if you learned how to play at a very young age. For those of you who learned how to play as an adult, I'm sure you would appreciate it even more than I do, that it is incredibly difficult. I couldn't imagine needing to teach kids how to play any instrument if I didn't know how to play an instrument. Now, I don't even know if that's what's happening. Like, I couldn't imagine that. I would imagine that they would select teachers that know how to speak French and know how to teach French and also know how to play an instrument. But then I don't know how many instruments. And I mean, I guess like, I don't know the answers to that. So I don't want to allude to anything. I don't want to make it sound like that's what's happening. I have no idea. Susan's mentioning this clearly because it's a problem. And I know for myself, when George started to learn how to play the piano, I said, maybe that's when I'm going to learn how to play the piano. I'm basically going to, every time he has a lesson, I'm going to learn what he learned, and I'm going to practice every day, just like he has to practice every day. And then I'm going to learn how to play the piano. And things got busy, and I didn't end up doing that. And then Charlie came along, and I said, I have a second chance. And I'm not doing too well with that either. And I get frustrated. I get frustrated when Chris isn't home and they have questions and I don't know how to read music. It is a whole other language that I really wish I knew. I'm not going to keep wishing. I'm going to learn how to play the piano. But what I'm saying is that for those of you who already know how to play, you probably can't even appreciate how much this means. And I think that we need to take it a little bit more seriously, because we have all of the things we need in order to give our kids a really great experience in all of these different subjects. So let's see if there's more. I can't recall all of the questions, but maybe I'll just cut some stuff out if it doesn't end up jiving or it doesn't serve. If you want to know how to get the rest, I don't think I said that. If you want to see the rest of the meeting, you can see all the meetings here in the WRDSB YouTube channel. So you can find all of them there. So if you can't listen live, which you're welcome to, you can attend in person or you can watch live the day of the meetings. Then you can always see them the day after. They're usually posted, I want to say after noon at least, or maybe after 2. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that it's never available right in the morning. So let's take a look.
Have a follow-up?
So I believe that you said to the delegates that we could make a motion to refer this as a future agenda item.
Request that it be included on a future agenda
Yeah,
item.
so I'd like to make a motion. I mean, there's more information I think as a board we need to gather. We didn't really make the decision, but I think there are questions that we really probably should ask. There should be more questions and answers. And so I'd like to make a motion that we refer this as a future agenda item to gather more information about this change.
Is there somebody that would like to second that? Trustee Ramsey? Okay. Are there any comments or questions on that motion? Trustee Woodcock?
I'm having some trouble understanding why we would look at it again when we haven't even implemented the changes that we have come up with from that review. So I would be inclined to.
I'd like to speak to that.
This is classic right here, guys. This is what we see constantly on the board. As I said, yes. Well, they didn't even mention it here. It would have been helpful if they said there was an extensive review and then talked about the extensive review. It will help people understand and be able to come up with solutions, knowing where everyone is with things. At this point, we're thinking the teachers had no idea, the parents had no idea, and what are these decisions based on? And, Woodcock says, basically, well, I'm confused, which is not uncommon for Woodcock. Why would we make more changes if we haven't even implemented the changes we already made? That's her question. Cindy's going to speak to it. Waterloo Region District School Board constituents, can you take a look at this? They're going to go on, and I'll play it, and feel free to skip over it if you want or watch it. But they're basically, the bottom line is that the decision has been made. So this is what I mentioned before. The decision has been made. So we're going to use, the next school year just to test it out. Even though you have these experts, which, I'm known as a teacher hater, but yet I'm listening to these teachers saying that they have the expertise, they have the know-how, they already can foresee the issues that are going to be happening in the school all year. The stress that it's going to cause the teachers already, let alone what it's going to cause for the whole year, them not being able to do their job the way they want to be able to do their job, the way they want to be able to serve these students. And then obviously the kids are going to suffer. And notice that too. When do we mention the children in any of this?
I think that it doesn't hurt to do some sober second thought, and staff have heard the delegates' information, and perhaps they can take another look, make sure that we're on the path that we're on right now, and we can always make changes after we've tried this.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to look to see, are there any other comments or questions? Okay, Trustee Radlin, about the motion?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. I think I heard Trustee Watson say that we hadn't agreed to it.
Because it's operational, this was a staff decision. So trustees didn't make this decision, it was a staff decision because it's operational.
So has something changed? Can trustees now make this? I'm not sure what can be done differently now.
This is another very common occurrence on the Waterloo Region District School Board. My hands are tied. This isn't something we have to deal with. Then say that. If there is something that's presented to you by a parent, by an educator, by any constituent with concerns or questions, then respectfully say, don't lie about it, but let's say, I received your response and your questions and your concerns. I'm hoping that you can, understand where they're coming from. So if so, then state that with truth. I understand where you're coming from. I would hope, I guess what I'm saying is I would hope that all of the trustees who are sitting at this board care very much about the constituents, about the students, about the parents, and being able to answer questions and being able to lessen concerns. And when something is brought forward, I would hope that the mentality is that I'm hearing your concern. Is it something that maybe you're not understanding, that you don't really actually need to be concerned about this? So I'm going to explain to you why you don't need to be concerned. Or perhaps there's information that's being missed, that, you know, the person who's bringing these things forward, once they understand that, then they're going to have a change in perspective. Sure, share those things. But don't just say, is there something that's changed then? I'm not understanding. Why are you talking to me right now? Why are you talking to me about this? Because this isn't something that the board has anything to do with. So go find out who's responsible for this and then go talk to them. Thanks. Bye. What? Why? Why this attitude? Like, this is not servant attitude. This is not a servant heart. This is not, this isn't a public servant that I'm seeing in front of me. I don't know what this is. Like, this happens time and time again. People are sick and tired of paying with their hard-earned money for people who are supposed to be serving the public, and all they say is, my hands are tied. Okay? Help them figure out where to go if it's not you that makes the decision. It will be I would say it is your responsibility to find out who it is they need to talk to, and it's not their responsibility to go find out all the time. Plus, this is a board matter. So again, another point to this is with Bill 98, maybe we don't need trustees. If every time an issue is brought up and the response is, this is a ministry issue, don't talk to me about it. This is your principal. Go talk to your principal about it. This is someone else's issue, not mine. Why do we have a board?
Is that correct? Okay, thank you. So I'll come back to you. I'll come back. Does that answer your question,
Yes, it
Trustee
does.
Redmond?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And question about the motion?
Yes,
Okay.
so my question about the motion is a little bigger impact. What is the impact of this? Schools are already staffing it. I'm not going to question that. This presentation has done a good job of moving a lot of us and making us think about a lot of things. That certainly is the truth. But we are at a spot here where the decision was made and schools are being staffed, the decisions are moving forward. So if we go ahead with this, this has repercussions throughout the entire system. I understand that there has been part of this decision, which was made last June before many of us were trustees, was that there was going to be review of it, because at the end of the first year of it, there was going to be a time to stop and review the impact of it. My thought on this is that might be a better time to do it, because so many things are in motion. And I think your presentation, the presentation earlier, might be something we want to keep right at our fingertips for next year at the time of review too. I guess I'm looking at the impact of this, if someone might want to address that. If we were to move ahead and ask this board to re-examine this, I think the repercussions of this right now could be pretty intense across the whole system, if I'm correct on that.
Would staff like to speak to if there would be any ramifications of this motion to staffing? Associate Director Shantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To respond to the trustee question, trustees, we are already into the process of staffing for the 23-24 school year. In our elementary panel, there are obligations that we have through our collective agreement and established staffing timelines. I can share with trustees that those processes are well into motion at this point. Our staff, due to the requirements that we have already been notified of their assignments for next year. And as trustees are probably aware, the staffing process is a very complex process. It takes us well into June. It started weeks ago and will transpire over the course of the next couple of months. So as the comment has been made, it's very complex, and to stop that process midstream would be challenging how to contemplate doing that.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Watson, you wanted to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. So when we hear the argument that, when it comes to delegation coming forward and, everything has been accelerated in terms of staffing and that sort of thing, why would delegations even come forward? There are many examples where we have asked staff to reconsider, to go back, and sometimes there are changes. When we hear it's going to be intense because of all the changes. Clearly, it's going to be intense. It's going to be intense on staff already, because we're going to have French teachers teaching music who who may not even understand music, and we have equipment that might not even be. Tonight, this is the first time that I've heard new information, and I think that if for us as a board of trustees, it would be important to gather all the information that we possibly can so that we understand the impact and ramifications on students and staff. And listening to what we had a parent tonight, and we voted down even sending his concerns to get questions. And now we have a staff member who's talking about all of the changes that will impact music. And
Sorry, I know you probably want to listen to what Cindy has to say there. But before I forget, that's another thing that happens constantly. So for those of you who have never delegated before the board, which I highly recommend you doing if you have something to say, those of you who have never done it before or have never seen it be done, well, for those of you who have never done it before, it's very difficult to have, sometimes 30 minutes of something you want to say. You need to condense it to 10 minutes, which I'm grateful for 10 minutes. But a lot of nuance is lost, and you need to condense it. So you condense it to these 10 minutes. It takes a long time to do that, unless you're not, you could just go up. You could just go up and talk for 10 minutes. You absolutely could do that, and it's your right to do that. But I know from experience for me, I have so much to say that it takes a long time to be able to condense it. And I want to be accurate when I'm speaking. So I will make sure that I look into everything and quote things accurately and all of those things. And then what happens at the end? Cindy Watson usually does this. She's notorious for saying whenever a delegate's up there, she believes that all of these questions, because usually there are questions or concerns or comments, should be sent to staff so that they can be addressed. And then that delegate, that parent or constituent, will then have answers directly to that person who delegated or asked those questions. And almost always, if it has anything to do with anything other than what the board wants to, the majority of the board, which is basically like an NDP party, basically, if it doesn't align with them and their beliefs, they won't send it forward. Can you imagine spending all that time and then it not even being brought to anyone to have some questions answered?
And students within the French Immersion Program, and just their impact with other students within the school. And so now we're saying, well, it's operational. Everyone knows around this table that if we as a board decide to make a motion and we have agreement with a majority, we can say this isn't operational because we value this, and we're deciding right now that this music program needs to be taught by music teachers, qualified music teachers. And so as far as I'm concerned, everything that I've heard around the table, really, it doesn't disqualify this motion. Boards of trustees are only good as the questions they ask and the information they receive. And right now, I've received new information, and I don't think that it's going to hurt for us to have a report so that we're fully informed instead of looking for reasons why we don't want any information. So obviously I put the motion forward. I think that the delegate was compelling, and this is information that we need to make a decision as to whether we want staff to reconsider the music going into going into French rather than English.
Okay, thank you. So the motion has been moved and seconded to request that this item be added to a future agenda item. All in favor? 3, 4. Okay, and opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that is not carried. Okay, thank you. T. Johnson, did you still have a question of clarification?
I did.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mornick.
Your message has been actually very well received, more received than it may feel right now. Please know that. You've done a superb job. I'm a retired music teacher. I knew what all that meant, and I understand deeply. I'm sitting here very, very torn right now. Please know that.
Your question?
Could you address choir? Are there options in the school to try and find a way forward with school choirs? Because right now we're addressing classroom situations? Do you see there's possibly some hope or a little bit of a light that you can maybe get some flyers and bring the students together that way?
Ms. Morley?
Thank you for your question, Trustee Johnson. What you are speaking to is something that is separate from what was in my delegation. What I was speaking to is primarily a classroom. And what you are speaking to is something that would go on outside the classroom, an extracurricular. And then you are leaning into, again, teachers doing that extra mile, which has never, that has never been a problem for many of our very dedicated music teachers who will go the extra mile. But to lean into that as the thing that's going to keep things together when those children have been removed from that teacher's instruction, you are eliminating a crucial piece in their feeling like they know the teacher or would be comfortable even singing in the choir or would even know that that would be a good fit for them. So removing that instruction from those children in French immersion from grade 1 all the way along is removing a crucial piece. So to lean into choir as being that piece that's going to fix all of this is very misleading, because you'll have a lot of kids who won't even know that would be something they could even do or try. And the relationship piece is also missing.
Thank you, Ms. Morley.
So, and before I forget, I should say that I do appreciate the way Carla Johnson did address some of this. It's, as I stated before, at least you're meeting them where they are. I won't say that she met her where she is, because again, it's excuses to me. I hear a lot of excuses and why we can't do this because it's so much work. And Trustee Watson put it, exactly accurately. I don't need to say anything else. It's exactly it. You're going to be weighing all the work that it's almost like, well, it's a bad investment. If it's a bad investment, get out now, get out before you go even further. Imagine there's already things in motion. Yes, that's really crappy. How much money are we going to save? How much time and grief are we going to save if we stop now and fix the problem? I will say that for parents who are pulling their kids out of the public system, and so depending on when you watch this, I may not have my kids in the public system anymore, but I will honestly say that another component of the hesitancy of taking them out was because of the French immersion. And if we decided to do schooling elsewhere and for whatever reason it doesn't work out and we need to fall back on the public system, if they can't get back into French immersion, are we going to be okay with that? And now that I watch this, I'm even questioning if French immersion is the best choice anyway. And so hesitancy could probably go down quite drastically if that's another issue for some of the parents who are wanting to get their kids out of the public system altogether, or at least the French immersion program, and wondering if it's the right thing for them. So anyhow, that's the French immersion stuff. Take a look. Maybe provide some feedback. I would recommend providing feedback to your principal, to your teachers, asking your teachers what they think about it, and then sending any comments, concerns to trustees. There's also the superintendent that you could send your concerns to. I might not have that right, but that's just based on my experience. That's kind of, and of course you can send it to the ministry as well. Again, another issue that if you're not getting your answers here, then perhaps you can try somewhere else. But I hope that was informative. I'd love to know what you think. And I do hope that you do watch what's going on with the board. And, some of us have been diligently watching and observing. David Toder is another parent who's been highlighting a few things that are happening in the board. So check out Beyond the Rift for some of those. I'll do my best to get some more up. There are so many, guys. Every single meeting, there are things that if we could have commentary going on, maybe there's some way that we could do this at the board meeting, because it takes a lot of time and energy to watch the board meetings and then to kind of unpack them. It takes a tremendous amount of time. So if everyone can kind of keep an eye out to know what's going on. It is a lot more helpful, and share it with other people. Have the conversations, guys. Have those courageous conversations with other parents, with other educators, and figure out how we can do better for our kids, because this is not what better for our kids looks like at all, in my opinion. And don't take my word for it. Like I said, take a look and figure it out for yourself with your own conscious thought, if this is what you want for your kids. And like I say, either if this isn't what we want, it's not about complaining about it. It's about standing up, and either standing up and trying to make a change in the current system, or it's about voting with our feet and getting out. So please reach out if you have any other questions, or if you have questions for me. And if I can help in any way, to connect you to learning more about the board and the system. Take care, everyone. Bye.